All right, let's go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the BTH 53-man Rams cutdown. What is this? I guess Zoom reaction show for the BTH boys. You got myself. You got Joe 3K. You got Nick or the Dizzle. You got Sosa, who is QB MVP, and you got LA Rams Joey, the cat dad, drinking. What the hell
bubbly.
Is that?
It's a bubbly.
Yeah, it's a bubbly, man.
Zero cal.
Is that diet approved?
Tastes like shit. Yeah,
it does.
It is.
It's just a whisper of grapefruit.
Is it keto approved?
Yeah, it's sparkling water, my man. So that's the catchiest name of any sort of thing that I've ever heard of. I mean, I could never repeat it if my life depended on it, but let's roll with it. 53-man roster.
53-man roster. What do we think of the 53? Any initial reactions? They had 3 UDFAs make the squad. Is that kind of surprising? The fact that they're going to bank on those inside linebackers with what about 17 starts between them? Maybe not even that. I don't know. What's our first reaction?
Let's start at the top. Let's start at the top. You were about to nab Sosa. Our backup quarterback's John Wolford. Like, for real. We don't have any other options. It's Jared Goff and John. If Jared Goff has to miss any time, Sosa's boy gets the mic.
If Jared Goff misses any time, you know what that means, right?
Disgusting.
We're going to rally around.
Oh, no.
And we're going to play good football.
Not for John Wolford. I can't believe it, though. It's real. It's happening.
I'm
surprised,
surprised.
Man, that guy played in the Alliance of American Football. He's a professional football player.
That's true.
Let's give him some respect.
That's true. That's a professional league that actually existed.
I'm not surprised.
They're like in depth at a lot of places.
QB2. So. I am surprised they're only going with 2 quarterbacks, though, in like this COVID season. You know what I mean? What happens if Jared Goff or you know what I mean? Something happens in a random.
They'll have someone on the practice squad.
I know.
Practice
but
squads are 16, right?
Anyone can get nabbed at any point in time, right, on the practice squad. So it's risky. Like, say Perkins gets snatched and it's week 7 and something happens to your starting quarterback. Like, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? You can't bring in a new guy. Well, you have to, but he's not going to know the playbook. He's going to be goddamn clueless. So
Johnny Hecker time.
But
no. There's one guy out there who knows the playbook.
Blake.
No,
Say it, Blake Bortles. He's right there.
Blake should be sitting on a beach, drinking Mai Tais,
chewing,
waiting for Sean to call.
Fat dip in, waiting for the phone call.
Yeah,
I love it.
No, I mean, there's potential for that as well. But I'm surprised. I'm surprised about that, the quarterback thing. Surprised about the 3 inside linebackers, but they are only carrying 52 guys, so I guess it does sound like they probably want to potentially make a move there, which I guess would make a shit ton of sense. But
sure.
It's probably the most interesting things to me, I guess. Also that apparently a lot of teams are keeping 10 offensive linemen this season. I don't know if that has something to do with the whole COVID thing. Probably, I'm guessing. But that's pretty interesting. The 4 tight ends, interesting too. I think that kind of symbolizes and foreshadows their ideas on offense in terms of they're probably going to play a lot more 12 personnel if they're going to have 4 tight ends on the roster. So
we did have to say goodbye to Joey's boy, whispered in the wind for the last time. Kelly. He's gone.
Word on the street is he skateboarded his way out of town.
Rookies.
Got left by Xavier Jones.
Mm-hmm. 11 rookies is interesting to me, to be honest with you. I think that going into the COVID landscape of understanding how hard it would be for a UDFA to make a roster. When I go up and down this and say that 20% of this roster is brand new to the league, it's pretty damn intriguing.
And 3
UDFAs. Coaching.
Yeah, there's a lot of change, right? Personnel, coaching-wise.
A lot of coaching that needs to get done for a coaching staff that got new coordinators everywhere. That's a tall task, man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, we didn't get to see anything. I found myself in a weird spot this year, actually missing preseason games because I didn't get to see any of these back of the roster guys. So you're just you're dependent on the scribe to kind of tell you who's showing out during warm-up drills because they don't get to watch. They can't report on plays and things, right? So it's a weird summer, but I'm ready for it.
That was the thing with Tremaine Ingram. We got Tremaine Ingram reports that he had stepped up with the second unit, right? And so clearly he was going to get a nod over somebody like Jamil Demby or Who else got cut from the offensive line group that didn't make it? That was close. Was Jeremiah Cologne. He's been there for a while,
Yep.
but the fact that you had Ankrum in there with the twos maybe signaled that he maybe had some love. The other one that I thought was interesting was, and I got it on our 53 projection, was Tristan Jackson, because his special team work while he was at Michigan State and Syracuse. I don't know that he's going to play much wide receiver, but I don't think it matters because he's at the back end of the roster. Even if he's active, it's only going to be for special teams work.
That Nick Scott role.
Yeah. And Nick Scott's in there too. He's gonna get a ton of special teams work.
A guy that kind of caught my eye was the Eric Banks.
Yeah,
He just didn't. He seemed like a guy that just kind of came out of nowhere a little bit.
Sure.
I mean, he's an undrafted free agent, and do you think he's going to just be on the not the practice squad, but do you think he's just going to be on the non-active list? He seems kind of like he's an unranked 2-star recruit.
He's also Memphis. Where does he play? I mean, does he play a 5-tech? Like, he weighs 230 pounds.
I was gonna say he's not heavy, so he's not replacing Ashawn Robinson.
No. I searched him up today after I seen that he made the roster. I was like, I don't even know who this is. I gotta look. And this is gonna be a lazy comparison, but UTSA, like long, thin. Reminds me a little bit like a Marcus Davenport.
Shut up, bro.
Yeah.
You wish. It reminds us all of the first round pick. Yeah.
They're a spitting image of each other, basically.
Right.
Same talent, same everything.
Yeah.
And a guy that we talked last year, we used to talk a lot about Greg Gaines, and then we didn't talk about him at all during the entire season, and haven't really talked about him in the off season at all. And there he is. I mean, he's on the team, but I mean, is he just a non-factor? I mean, he was a 4th round pick, right, or 5th round pick?
4th, yeah.
I mean, he doesn't seem like a guy that we're going to put any sort of expectation on to start if anything goes wrong, right? I mean, he's kind of.
You might have to now.
Yeah,
without Ashawn.
I mean,
yeah.
It's either him or Sebastian.
Yeah,
but I think Sebastian has a huge step, above him.
Yeah.
I mean, he did last year. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
One thing with Sebastian, you notice he's been in that Sosa workout routine. His body's changed.
Yeah. No, Bash looking good.
And he's been like very featured in terms of like their, their off season videos
he's a
and
goof,
story.
That's why.
Yeah,
that's got a lot of personality. The other interesting thing is only keeping 4 corners.
Right.
This defense is not going to look like the defense that we've seen the past few years at all. Like, get ready for big dime looks, like 3 safeties. I don't know. I think it obviously ties with what the inside linebacker outlook looks like right now. But when I looked at it and saw 4 corners, like, oh shit, like that's real.
Yeah. I think that kind of speaks to like more of like what Terrell Burgess is. You know what I mean? Right. He's so versatile that like he just allows you to carry a less linebacker, 1 less corner, 1 less safety, even because like he could do anything. And I think that like the Rams are going to have kind of the intention to move him around, as well as like Taylor Rapp too, but. Especially a guy like Terrell Burgess, because if you need him in the nickel, he can play in the nickel.
He can come down. If
you need him play like linebacker on passing downs, he can do that. If you need him play safety or like there's no limit to what he can do. So, I think having him allows you to kind of just play around with the numbers. Yeah.
Is he the heir apparent to NRC with only 4 corners there? I mean, I don't see David Long taking that role, right?
I don't think
David Long's doing it.
No, I think Darius Williams is going to do it.
Darius?
Yeah, I think so.
But the thing is, he's a nickel corner. I could see Burgess being in a role that's almost like what Patrick Chung did with the Patriots, where he's not like a typical nickel corner, but he's playing with some of those kind of like same responsibilities almost, because Burgess can do that. So not necessarily a replacement for Nickel, but almost the way like a slot corner differentiates from a outside man corner, you could get some of that transferred to Burgess, because the guy that's not going to do that is Jordan Fuller, but I could see him getting on the field too, because he can play all the way at the back. And so depending on how they want to use John Johnson, he's kind of the X factor that I don't know, A, because he's coming off an injury and how he looks, but also B, I don't know what Staley wants to do with some of these guys. Cause like you said, 4 corners and that inside linebacker group, it's going to be weird. Not even a dime. Like, could you maybe roll with 6 quote unquote defensive backs? I know in that case you might be using the safety less as a defensive back and more as like a de facto linebacker. But I could see that happening in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could even go like in terms of being able to match up with nickel corners or like you said, kind of like that de facto kick down roll from the safety spot, just by matchups. You know what I mean? If someone's more shifty, maybe you want a guy like David Long who's smaller and shiftier. If you got like a bigger bruiser, kind of like a big slot player, like a Cooper Kupp, maybe you want someone who's bigger and more physical, right? So, and that's what's cool about it, is that I don't necessarily know that anyone stepped up and grabbed that nickel spot. Like, we don't know. We don't watch the practices, obviously. And someone maybe did, but like, even if they didn't, they got options to at least kind of throw guys in there.
You know what's interesting though? Like if you look at how this defense is somewhat, at least on paper, it looks like they're going to be constructed inside of the division. There's some things where it makes a lot of sense, and then there's some things that scare the absolute shit out of me. Like if you're building it to be a 5 DB look or even a 6 DB look, if that is even feasible, like it may make sense to match up against Cliff, and then even what Seattle's going to do. But my God, like if the Niners do anything or look like anything that they look like last year, and then this is the defense that we're going to roll out, and there's no A-Shon up front to plug shit, like scary. That's
a really good point. Yeah, even Seattle like runs the ball almost like top 5, I think,
much.
in the NFL.
Yeah,
way too much. Yeah. They got the let Russ cook. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I don't know if that's going to be the same anymore though. But because I mean, because Fluker's gone, like that offensive line looks a lot different. I think that team is actually finally going to let Russ cook.
I hope not. I hope not.
Well, me too. I think that they're the scariest if they let Russ go back there and chuck it a bunch. But what's your guys?
Tom Cable back?
God, I wish.
Shoddy's still around, right?
Rob just wants him for the Seattle talk show love that I'm sure Cable got.
Oh my God.
Well, you know what? You guys were talking about Seattle and San Francisco, and the one team I'm worried about taking a big step forward is Arizona with Kyler Murray. Like, you're talking about letting a guy cook.
Did they get anyone in the offseason that could help them?
Maybe they got a pass catcher. I wasn't keeping track. But I think the thing with them, or at least with our defense, is that, the past couple of seasons we've been struggling to stop the run. So with all these changes, you got to understand it, because you have a lot of talent, and it just wasn't gelling. And, you get rid of Wade and you try something different. And I would definitely just be open to them just trying something new in regards to stopping the run, which I think they've made a lot of strides in that. Like, I think finally seeing what Micah Kaiser is going to look like, and seeing if you're going to play him next to Kenny Young. I mean, a lot of us are like, what's that going to be? Yeah. But we got to see it. We're not going to see any preseason games. So I just am very kind of curious on how they are going to be with the run, because they don't have a lot of like sexy looking players, but they seem to have this sort of I guess it just
so
hot. Kind of like so hot. It feels like kind of this sort of idea that they're going to be stout, that they're going to just not try to get big splash plays, but they're just going to dig their heels in the ground and not let big plays happen.
And what's weird is, think about the schedule and how it sets up for this. I mean, I know we got Dallas week 1, and that's a little bit different. But when there's no San Francisco until mid-October, no Seattle until after the bye, no Arizona until after the bye. So you're starting with Dallas, Philly, Buffalo, New York, Washington, San Fran, Chicago, Miami. If there's a part of the schedule that you want to try out a whole new look for, roster and defense, that's the side of the schedule you want to try it on, not the back end when you got Seattle twice, San Fran, New England, and Arizona twice. So I think that's going to be real interesting, is that they get a couple games to tinker with some things. You talk about Micah Kaiser and Kenny Young. I don't know how much we're going to see both of them on the field. I feel like maybe because they only went 3 inside linebackers, it might be Micah Kaiser, and then if you want to, maybe you kick Leonard Floyd inside. Or like we talked about with the extra safeties, I think that might be something we see way more than a Kaiser-Young duo in the middle.
Okay, so if you put Leonard Floyd in the middle, then who do you have on the outside? If you have, let's say you have Samson Ebukam, who's the other dude? Is it our boy Ogbonia?
This is his chance. Terrell Lewis, if he gets healthy. I think the fact that they kept Polite, I think, was interesting, because I think that's a pass rushing thing versus linebacking play where you had Natrez Patrick right there. So we'll see. I'm going to be interested to see, because this is one of those things where you can just roll some dice on guys and say, look, this is your shot. It's 3rd and 6. if you want snaps moving forward, we got 4 or 5 weeks where we're going to tinker with some things before we settle in, and that's going to be what it is from there on out. That's not like 2018. 2018, you had the Super Bowl team. You could stick with Samson Ebukam and Matt Longacre for a while because the rest of the team's good enough. I don't know that that's going to be the case this first month and a half, and I think that we might see a lot more rotation, especially on the defensive side.
There's no bigger EWU stan in this chat right now than me. And the fact that they're like Samson is like the guy who's locked in and everybody else is, fluid. Woo! I could have benefited from some like Samson cycle talk this summer to help me feel a little better about this, but
the fact that he didn't get any tells you something.
Good,
Robbo. Every week on the podcast, I keep trying to talk about who's going to start. We keep throwing these names, and none of them sound real. They all sound like, well, no, it's not going to be that guy. You're not going to.
And now it's all of them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of Polite, but I mean, we have if he can't make the Seahawks and he can't make the Jets, I know he's a third-round pick, but I mean, I like the fact that he's a Florida guy. I mean, this is from a big system, but it's like
the thing is the same as Okoronkwo and
Thank you. I said this earlier.
Yeah, and they weren't getting him on the field as much as the fans like him. How often did the coaches put Okoronkwo on the side when it came to game day? So now you got two options that are relatively similar, but
you got to put someone on the field.
You got to put somebody in. It was going to be Lewis, right? But if he can't go, you got to dip into
the. Can Burgess rush the passer? He does everything else. Probably not.
But at that point, you're talking about blitzing, and so maybe. Sure. But we don't know Staley's blitz tendency, or I wouldn't assume anything based on what we saw from Fangio.
Let him play that Jamal Adams role.
Maybe.
Do you guys like Staley?
I don't know
Staley.
To be determined.
Is Staley going to be the mimic of 2018 Bears? If so, I fucking love Staley.
did he bring Vic Fangio's like psyche with him and just let's just go? I mean,
he's 37 years old, man. He's 37.
His defense hasn't given up 300-yard rushing in a game, so I love him right now. We'll see what happens after 21 gets a hold of him next couple weeks.
Yeah. Another point actually that I thought of that you guys were talking. If we're not playing San Fran for a while, and if we're not playing Seattle for a while, it might be like decent to think that Ashawn might make it back in time when we're going to need him most. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also another thing, the two teams that are like, I don't want to say necessarily the most banged up right now, but you got Dallas already missing multiple players ruled out. You got Philly, who's the most beat up team in football.
They lost 2 offensive linemen before we got to the season.
And their number 2 receiver, like their quarterback's hurt, their running back's banged up. I mean, they had like cornerbacks banged up. I mean, Jesus, everyone on that team. Javon Hargrave, that recent guy they signed, D tackle. So, I mean, the Rams have got some fortune right now. Obviously, it's, a couple weeks away before we can even, think about who might play and who might not. But it's shaping up like pretty well right now, especially how like lucky the Rams have been over the last few years in terms of injuries. Not so much last year, but like in terms of 2018 and 2017. Man, it's crazy to just look around the league and see how many guys like get hurt. And you got the Chargers, the same city, Derwin James, just one season after the next, which is such a shame.
Feel bad for
I do find it interesting that it doesn't matter what and who is running our defense, that inside linebacker is a complete afterthought.
Yeah.
And the defenses, the past 3 defenses that we've had have literally been built around to mask that position, which you can. I think like you truly can. And in the NFL, it's one or the other. There's no in between. It's either it's a highlight or it is a deficiency, and you're going to build around and pray to God that you don't get hammered on there. Which it scares me. I think in the division that we play in, when you have Kittle and then a shoddy offense that loves to get the ball to the tight end. I think that the one thing there, though, is Micah, the conception is that he's just this downhill blockhead.
Yep.
He's actually pretty fucking athletic, to be honest with you. Like, you look at his athletic profile compared to Corey Littleton, it's relatively the same thing.
His numbers are good. But like, what's funny is the best role for him when he was in college was that he was like a pass rusher, like kind of similar to what Alec Ogletree was in terms of like sending him on a blitz, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like most fans don't really know who he is. I mean,
hasn't played enough.
He hasn't played, right? But yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up. Like, and I agree actually with the philosophy of not pouring in resources at inside linebacker. I mean, obviously at some point you probably should put something there, but for sure I would value coverage and pass rush way more before that. And I think what the Rams had, like in terms of their plan, made a lot of sense going into the offseason, and it shows that they were going to disregard the linebacker position in general, because you add a guy like Leonard Floyd, who's at his best stopping the run and setting the edge. You add a guy like Ashawn Robinson, who's literally just Michael Brockers without whatever pass rush ability he has. So like everyone they added, every move they made in the offseason suggested that like we're going to stop the run. And obviously when they're spending all their assets like away from the outside inside linebacker position, it doesn't leave much to mess there. So it's just a shame that Ashawn might not be able to play right away. But
a shame that we lost Traven Howard too, because I think he would have been a factor for some of the stuff that we're talking about in terms of scheme. There is one other guy though that didn't make the 53 that a little surprise, and I know it had to hurt Sosa. King Lirum.
That hurt.
I bet it did.
That stung. That stung my Balkan
You
heart.
finally got representation in the media, and what happened? Cancel culture.
Yeah, it was
cancel culture.
I think this is some sort of scheme we're gonna have to investigate. This might go very deep into the organization here. I feel like
anti-Balkan culture within the Rams.
I feel there might be some sort of like sketchy stuff going on here. I can't confirm yet, but we're gonna investigate throughout the year. No, but you know what's funny that you say that? I bet you by week 10 he'll be back. All right. I bet you by week 10 he'll be back.
See, if you guys are nervous about linebackers and other people are nervous about offensive line, dude, I've been nervous about kicker since the end of last year because I knew they weren't going to bring back Greg. I hate messing around with kickers. I hate it.
It's the worst, yeah.
Well,
if you got a guy who you don't want to replace,
have pinned the entire season on last year on one kick. So many people are just pissed off over the Seattle kick. And Nick and Joe and I, we talked, that might have been he might have made that kick
yeah, right.
if there was some technology involved.
I think it could have been.
For the most part, Rams fans want to hang Greg Zuerlein by the yard arm because he missed that kick and that cost them the playoffs when they booted plenty of other games, as I mentioned to you guys, including Pittsburgh, where they lost to Mason freaking Rudolph, and their defense scored 9 of their 12 points. I mean, you can't put that whole thing on Greg. Greg has been pretty good for them. Yeah, he had a little down year last year, but he sent you to a Super Bowl the year before by making
so short-sighted.
Biggest kick of this franchise's history. Is there another kick that was bigger than that one?
Hey, you know what, though? It's all about Samuel Sloman now.
Just the name already sounds slow man. Oh.
Yeah.
He wore 79.
His attire, 79. He's like chunky. It's not a good.
It's worrisome. I'm not, but let's hope that it goes well. I'm not.
Was that
like
some
nepotism? It feels like I don't know. We're gonna
do
have
what, Rob? Was that McVay's nepotism there, going for the
right, alma mater? Yeah,
it might
for
be
the Hamilton Tiger.
Yeah, I feel like he wanted to get rid of a little bit of Balkan and go for some Miami over Ohio. I don't know. It's a little sketchy to me. No, I wouldn't be surprised. I
respect
honestly.
and appreciate what Liron brought to the table, but we just had to go with my alma mater.
They dropped the ball, man.
The only one we haven't talked about, I think, is the inside linebackers themselves, the two cuts, Clay Johnston and Roseboom. You lost your boy Papa Fudge, Joey.
I did. It seemed like the writing was on the wall with that dude. Yeah. He'll probably
anytime Hard Knocks does that. Anytime Hard Knocks features a guy, you can almost always write it in that it's not going to work.
Out.
Well, and the other guy, Juju with the toothpick, he also got cut.
Yeah.
That was such a waste of Hard Knocks time. Like, no
That's
offense,
what Hard Knocks
like,
does.
This guy was highlighted for putting a toothpick in his mouth for like half an episode, and this guy's not even on the damn team anymore.
Joey would have seen that script and been like, "No, this is too gimmicky. Cut it out. Just get this character."
Surely they could have found someone more entertaining on the team. Like, come on.
I want to see Xavier Jones, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many guys that are like entertaining that I feel like they could have done a much better job highlighting that I would have even been curious to see and hear, you know?
Yeah.
But,
well, you know what? As a big guy that got cut that they spent some time on Hard Knocks was Dante Dion.
Yeah,
that was a good one. Too. Like that was content right there. He needed more screen time, and he's actually a really good player, which is ironic. But I'm sure
back in the practice squad, right?
Yeah. I'm sure if he clears waivers, they're gonna bring him back. But I mean,
who else do you think might get on that practice squad?
Clay Johnston,
Bryce Perkins for sure. Any of the wide receivers? Ernest Edwards IV, Easop Winston Jr., and J.J. Koski. I like that little J.J. Koski because he's one of those guys, almost like John Wolford. He does not look like a football player.
I think Winston has a chance. That kid's got some game in him.
Yeah, I'd like
Any
to
love
see
on the
Usopp,
offensive line? Demby?
Gotta be
Could
someone.
Jamil be?
Gotta be
No,
somebody.
Demi doesn't
Fuck
deserve
no.
to be in the
God,
league.
people
At all.
hate poor Jamil, man.
Yo, you guys are
Can I-
haters.
If
You
you
guys are.
can't make that top 10, then you're a bum. Because that's not an elite top 10. Like,
You guys are
you know what I
haters,
mean?
man.
We got to go outside. If we need someone else
Yeah.
to fit in the 10, we're not going to get a practice squad because it's just a bunch of fat guys.
Ugh.
You gotta be.
You know
you
my
gotta be
stance
bad
on
for-
less need
for-
an offensive lineman.
Oh,
What you
God.
saying, this?
It's
Please,
the worst.
Go find him. Go find a guy who was drafted by somebody else and bring him to the practice squad because Les
Dude,
can't.
And
fucking
you,
keep
that's your
Ronald
new
Leary.
thing. You hate Snead's offensive line picks. I love
Oh,
it.
man.
Ronald
I mean,
Leary.
as good as he's been with DBs,
Ronald
and he's
Leary.
been good with DBs, right? I mean, Les
Yeah.
has found talent in the secondary. He is woeful on offensive line. I mean,
Did he draft Rob Haydenstein? I think he did.
There you go.
1 out of
Well
15
done,
is not a
Joey.
good number, Joey.
Well,
1
that
out
was
of
the
15
highest
is not a
one.
good number.
Besides
Greg Robinson.
God rest his soul.
Uh,
I don't know.
Pour one
Because he's
out.
dead to me. Dead.
Pour one out.
Yeah.
Bring in Ron Leary, all right? Like, come on. What game are we playing here? Like,
Yeah.
I love the fact that they trust these young guys and want someone to come seize the job and, like, shock the world. And, dude, Joe Noteboom was absolute cheeks last year, man.
He was
like,
poor.
Austin Blythe
Brian
was
Allen.
horrible last year. And Austin
He
Corbett
was better when he moved to center, though. I mean, he was very bad.
He was better, but not
Yeah.
good. Ironically enough, his PFF grade was actually lower than Brian Allen, which is funny. And then Austin Corbett was awful too. Like,
He
I get the
struggled.
money and I get all this good stuff and whatever, but like, come on, man. Like, the Eagles lose 2 offensive linemen, and the first thing they do is bring in Cordy Glenn to try and like seize the hole, or, like fill the hole, whatever. I don't get it. I don't get it. I feel like,
What
your
this tells
offensive
me
line
is that Roger Saffold is the most significant free agent loss that this team has had in years.
agreed.
I mean,
Hey,
that's
I'll-
true for sure, but
Now, speaking of loss, what do you guys think the offense is going to look like without Brandon Cooks? Because that was a guy that got a lot of looks, right? Jared Goff is throwing the ball to him a lot. Who do you
same.
think? Where do you think it's just kind of like you won't even notice it? It's just going to be like a
Well, come on. Who was
Okay.
the cycle champion of 2020? Van Jefferson, man. Van Jefferson.
Right.
The fans want to see him. I don't know if it's going to work out as much as he's getting hyped up for, but
I
the
think
fans
it's going to
want him.
be. I mean, Josh Reynolds seems like he would make more sense, even though he wasn't getting
Right.
any cycle love. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
or is it just going to be a different approach rather than doing the same
Maybe.
thing that they did last year?
for sure, it
That
will be.
they're going to try to implement Gerald Everett.
For sure.
Or I
And,
think they might try
um,
to implement that running game more to start the season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, can we
but they
talk
have
about
to.
that rumor today about the trade offers for Gerald
Gerald?
Everett?
Mhm.
That got
Dude,
Yeah,
they're
turned
gonna
that
down.
play
makes
way
sense.
more 12 personnel. For sure they are. It's a
Yeah.
guarantee. I guarantee what they did the second half of last season, I think they're gonna be closer to that than what they were in 2018 when they were running 99.7% of the time. 11
Sure.
personnel. It makes sense. First of all, it
The
like
offensive
helps
line.
mask their deficiencies. You got
Yeah, when
2
you can't
really good
keep-
tight ends. Like, it just makes
If you can't keep
you could
16
do
upright,
things-
you need the help.
Yeah.
You could do things to like mimic an 11 personnel offense with your 12 personnel, right?
Sure.
So, and I highlighted this a couple times last year in that Atlanta Falcons game. They lined up in 12 personnel. They motion out Gerald Everett to the X spot, and he just gets a safety on him. Like,
Yeah.
I'll take a Gerald Everett versus a safety against a Josh Reynolds versus like a top tier cornerback every
Right.
single time, right? It doesn't
Right.
matter who's
Agreed.
out there. It matters who's going against him, and that's the
Yeah.
only thing that's relative. And so, like, you could, and obviously Sean McVay loves motion and all these like crazy
Mhm.
things and formations, and so like you can mimic a term like a similar thing in terms of 11 and 12 personnel. But I don't know.
Here's a question for you guys. First 4 games of the season, who gets more playing time? Bryson Hopkins or Johnny Munt?
Month.
Johnny Munt,
Johnny
You
Munt.
think so?
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Good
I
girl
don't
team,
think
kids. All
I don't think
American.
Hopkins
Johnny
is gonna
Munt.
play much. I don't think
Apple
Hopkins is
pie.
gonna play too much.
I think I think we're all making the assumption that Cam Akers is that's his show.
Yes,
Until he can show if the reason why they drafted him, if he can replicate that in the league of creating on his own and after first contact continuing through the play, like if he can do that, then Munt gets removed from the picture.
Right.
But until then, I think it's here. You got to give him all the help you possibly can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I'm excited to see the running game deploy.
I
I
was
mean,
gonna
even
say,
if
what do you guys
even if
think of?
Hendo's not 100%, and that might hurt, but
How do you think they're gonna split it up? I'm like of the thought that it's 70% Cam Akers, 15-15 the other two, almost like
I don't know.
work
Is
share.
that going to be the case for week 1 though? Like
Maybe
they might
not
want,
week 1.
yeah.
Especially
Let
with the
Malcolm
injury
Brown.
thing.
Yeah.
I think it'll maybe be like a 50-50 Malcolm Brown, Cam Akers
Right.
kind of thing. If Hendo's not going, which I assume he
Right.
probably won't. I don't know why I assume that.
Malcolm's
Is
got to
it-
be
is
the
it-
third down back, right? Just because he
I
can
don't know.
pass protect until Cam
But-
shows he can do it.
Right. I think Cam's playing time is solely predicated on if he can pass block. Because if he can't, like,
Mhm.
you're a liability.
Yeah.
Especially in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, because they've never been one to throw a lot to the running back, right? And
Right.
so I think it would make sense to have a guy like Malcolm in there if you're going to pass block for sure. And I think Malcolm might like it'll be a big ass headache, I think, for fantasy owners. You know what I mean? I think it might be like for the first half of the season, they might have a Malcolm in the red zone and short yardage, and when you need 3 yards and a veteran to just put his head down and kill someone.
And he's been good at that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dude,
he's
he's
great.
quality.
Yeah, that's
He's
great.
quality.
Yeah.
But like you can't draft a guy 52nd overall at the
And not
easiest
play.
position in football to translate and not want to highlight like, dude, how crazy good Cam
Yeah.
Akers is. And
Yeah.
that's what's funny about it is that every time I look either at his tape or his numbers I'm like, holy shit, man, this guy's
He's nice.
impressive. This guy's
Nice.
impressive. Like
You
that O-line
can't do that.
sucks. And he's still I bet you he's still gonna produce really good results.
Have you been watching the Rams the last few years? You can't draft you can't have your first pick sit on the bench and not do anything. I think Gerald Everett and Gerald Henderson have shown that you can make your top pick really
you can.
irrelevant in your offense.
You can when you're a 2018 talent level team, or as well as tight end. Tight end is the hardest position to translate in the NFL, whereas you see running backs come out of goddamn nowhere, 6th round, 8th, 7th round, undrafted, and they just plug him in, and 1,000 yards later, everyone's like, "Holy shit, where did this guy come from?" Like, Alfred Morris comes out of 7th round, Florida Atlantic, 2 years back to back, 1,600 rushing yards per season, and that Shanahan scheme outside zone.
2019 Gerald Henderson getting drafted and playing time, and this year is there's no Todd Gurley.
Right.
Hendu takes that second half pitch, shits all over the field, he'll turn the ball over, and he doesn't play a single down the rest of the year.
Yeah.
They have Todd Gurley still. They don't have that luxury now. Now you have to either go to the guy who booted it last time or Malcolm Brown. So I think Cam Akers' rope, his leash is a little longer.
I'm just
More
excited
guys
to see
shitting
the
all over
running game.
field.
Yeah.
Agreed. I'm excited to see a healthy half.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get to see that combo last year
Right.
of David Edwards, who I think is far superior than Bobby Evans. Bobby Evans, in my opinion, should never see a snap ever again. But David Edwards alongside of Have, I think, is a lot of meat, and you can run behind it.
I would have liked
Two guys-
Edwards at right guard. I think that made more sense than Austin Corbett.
Agreed.
Even
Agreed.
Two
if you
guys who
leave
played a
Corbett
lot
on
last year,
left.
and you haven't heard their names.
Yeah.
You haven't
Right.
heard them all summer. You haven't heard of Edwards or Evans all summer long.
That's true.
Other
yeah.
than
We're talking
when
about
he's
Tremaine
throwing
Akam getting
Slurpees in his face.
second team snaps. Have you heard Bobby Evans getting second team snaps? I don't know.
No.
Where's he even at?
I have no idea where any of those guys are lining up.
No clue.
Literally have no idea. But yeah, I was really shocked when I found out Joe Noteboom was starting at left guard and Austin Corbett was starting at right guard. I'm like, what the hell? That's a shock to me. I wouldn't have guessed that in a million years.
Yeah.
To me, it makes more sense you leave Noteboom on the bench and keep him as a swing tackle, and Lord forbid something happens at tackle, you plug him in because I think that's his best spot. And you go with like either Bobby Evans at guard or Edwards, who would have been my first option. But.
Well, the one thing we can say is that there's no certainty that this offensive line is going to last that long. Remember last year we had Blythe get hurt in, what was it, week 3? And then he sat for week 4. Or did he get hurt in week 2 and sit week 3? Either way, he missed a game early on. Remember, that was Jamil Demby. Then by week 6, that was when Noteboom got hurt. Demby came in. And then a week later, Demby's bench, and it's Edwards. So I wouldn't be surprised if Cromer got some.
And Allen, a couple weeks later.
And Brian and Havenstein and Allen in week 10 got hurt. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Cromer got some lessons learned from shuffling with his offensive linemen, that maybe he might be able, the way that he set Jamil Demby, even though he wasn't hurt, maybe he's got a little bit more comfort shuffling the guys that he might have to do this year versus having his hand forced due to injury. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
And even like what you guys were – go ahead.
Yeah, the thing with Noteboom at guard, and I there's like this weird perception that you can take a tackle and put him in at guard and that it is going to be easier.
Right.
And it is 100% not true because shit happens so much faster. And I think Roger was the perfect example for it because Roger's body type was far more suited to play guard. He was bigger, like he was all legs. And the thing that's scary about both Bobby Evans and Noteboom playing guard is they're both waist benders. They both rely on their hands rather than their feet, and that's scary as shit.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's inside is not easier. It's different, right? It's different.
Yeah.
And so, but like what you guys mentioned earlier, I was thinking, we didn't get preseason, obviously, right? So there may be more shuffling in terms of who starts week 1 of play 1 might not start week 2 play 1 or week 6 play 1. And so I think I wouldn't be shocked if something like that happened across the offensive line either, right?
Yeah.
Because we have no, like, offensive line is the one place you really have no damn clue what's going on until the bullets are flying, right?
Yep.
And so, yeah, scrimmages are great and whatever. That's all great, but it's a different story when you got Fletcher Cox absolutely abusing you 60 snaps a game in week 2. And so, or DeMarcus Lawrence is just giving you the business all game week 1. So I wouldn't be shocked if, they go with these guys for now. And then, if they pivot in week 3 or week 6 or, and
again, to bring it back to the schedule, think about the front sevens that they're facing, right?
Right
Very different than the other side of things. The Cowboys, the Eagles, the Bills, the Giants, Washington now with Chase Young. That's going to be a test.
That might be the best front out of all those teams you just named.
It's not bad.
They are loaded.
San Francisco and Chicago. So offensive line's good. It's not like when we were talking about the defense and like, hey, you got some games where you can ease into things. Offensive line's going to have their hands full from the
first snap of the game. You got to go. Go. Like Dallas signed Dontari Poe. They signed Gerald McCoy, who got hurt, but they signed
Randy Gregory.
Randy Gregory's back.
Cowboys are nice.
Eagles, they just invest in their D-lines like nobody.
Yeah.
So that's the scary thing is just that, Jared Goff's not a guy who's like Kyler Murray, for example. In terms of last year, their O-line, the Cardinals, was horrible. But it didn't matter because Kyler Murray is effective, right? Mm-hmm. And so you got to know your personnel and you got to give them a chance to succeed. And I think that's where they really failed last year in terms of Jared Goff. And I don't even blame them for that because nobody knew, right? They took a shot in the guys that they drafted and we found out the answer pretty quickly. But I feel like that could be like the Achilles heel this year in terms of we found out the answer last year, I feel like. And doing the same thing again and like hoping for like a completely different result seems kind of like insane to me. So I would have went for sure and added at least like one important offensive line body. But when you have limited assets and not much money and you're not left with that many options except for
Jalen Ramsey played left tackle. No?
Dante Dion? I feel like you could kick him to guard.
Okay.
So we should bring this something up that we talked about before we started recording. The cap factor. They're up against the cap as it is. And with NFL revenue streams down, the thought is that the cap is going to go down for next year, which really hamper a team like the Rams because they have no space anyways. And you have no cheap draft picks coming in to replace those guys. Joe, how many picks do you have next year?
No first, no fourth, no fifth.
Right. So you're not going to be replacing a lot of talent. You're not going to have 11 rookies unless they're all UDFAs next year. And if your cap goes down and you sign Jalen Ramsey to a bigger deal than he's at 13.5 this year, it's going to get interesting. So that's the storyline I want to look forward to next at the end of the offseason, see what they do with this cap and the revenue streams. Because if they go down, we were talking before, the only way they could really make this thing happen, if not, you're going to punish teams who've signed long-term deals.
Yeah,
is to put some kind of luxury tax on teams,
right?
For 1 year or 2 years or whatever it is.
It doesn't make it. Yeah.
Maybe a slight reduction, as Sosa mentioned, like 10% or something. But I cannot see them cutting the salary cap down by 30% and then expecting teams to make it. So some rule changes coming up. So
I'm not like no money expert, but with the cap going up every year, essentially, other than this year, obviously, and next year with this whole weird thing, wouldn't it make sense to like take 10% of every year for the next 10 years and slice that off the revenue stream instead of just eating the huge L next year? Because every year the streams were going, like the cap space was going up in terms of, like a 10% increase or whatever it was, 7% every year. So like 10% of next year's cap might seem significant, like 20 million or whatever it might be, but 10% of 2029's cap is not going to be like, it's percentage. So, but like, I don't know. It's going to be very confusing. And I don't think anyone has any clue what's going on. And I don't know if they're even going to ever figure it out or when, but it's definitely something to think about. But Do you think that has anything to do with why they're not signing somebody like Jalen Ramsey or Cooper Kupp
No.
even? Or
No, they
I
have to
I think
sign him.
Cooper, Jalen Ramsey, you have to. Like, if you're
Yeah.
Les Snead and you don't sign him, you don't have a job.
yeah, you
That
definitely-
trade,
Yeah.
that trade looks quite
That's
bad
what-
in retrospect.
That's what's scary, right? Because then he holds all the cards, and he knows he holds
all
all
the
the
leverage.
cards.
He does.
Literally
But
nothing to
he
worry
just
about.
mentioned-
Hey, can we
you just
pay him in
mentioned-
Canadian dollars? Is that an option? That would cut the cost.
Yeah, but that would eat
probably.
like 95% of the cap if we're going with that kind of currency.
You just mentioned Cooper Kupp and then John Johnson. Are the two
Yeah.
big names out there who
Ugh.
might not get signed. I mean,
Or
if
Gerald
Van
Everett.
Jefferson.
Yeah.
If Van Jefferson is the next Cooper Kupp and Fuller's the next John Johnson, you can let those guys walk. Gerald Everett. I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
The
But
Rams are sending out a lot of good
big
talent
choices.
across the NFL, man. The last 4 years, I know it's great to get comp picks and all, but man, we're giving a lot of talented players around the league. Ugh.
But that's what happens when you have a Super Bowl team, though, right?
Sure,
like,
sure.
that's the NFL, and welcome to the parody of it.
Yeah.
From the cap perspective, though, I think the thing is going to be interesting is that, I mean, like, if we look at the whole COVID situation for the past 6 months, like, how fluid has it been? Like,
Right.
there's the wind blows a different direction every single day tomorrow.
Right.
If who says that we get to week 8 and the NFL just says, all right, here, like, go ahead, you can have fans.
Right.
And then,
Right.
then the whole money thing is mute.
Sure.
The
Right.
TV deal they just signed was gargantuan.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you
They've
too.
been- They've been able to
Yeah.
print money at will over the years, and so
Right.
we're going to find out. I mean, the COVID will test that theory of they've been bulletproof. Other leagues have really taken a dip. The NFL
Yeah.
is super successful because people love it. We love it. There's a reason why it's the biggest thing on the in this country. So if there's a league who's able to weather the storm, it's got to be the NFL.
Yeah, you would think, right? But yeah, that's a really interesting situation. Like, I'm curious to see if they sign any of these guys. Like, I'm trying to think right now, how many guys over the last few years do they typically sign guys prior to entering their contract year? I'm trying to think right now. I don't.
That's the thing. They haven't handled any of them well, right?
I know, right?
Yeah.
You look
Yeah.
at
They
you
signed
look at
them early.
Tremaine. Oh,
Joyner,
they signed everyone
Tremaine.
wrong early.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah, right.
I think the only
It's either too late, in
Yeah.
terms of after their last year, or way too early in terms of 2 years into
Right.
or 3 years
Yeah.
into their rookie deal.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they need to find that sweet spot, like 4th year going into your 5th year type thing.
I think it was Havenstein and Alec Ogletree were the only ones they did at the end. Everybody else has almost been early. And Aaron Donald, obviously.
Yeah, Aaron Donald.
Well, was that
Cooks.
early?
Yeah,
No, that was the opposite early. That was all the way at the end.
Yeah.
the one
Cooks.
guy who should have been signed earlier, they dicked
You're right.
around with.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone else, it's like, hey,
Yeah.
you've
I
got 2
can't
years
believe
of
there
cost
wasn't-
control. Let's get you a new deal.
I can't believe there wasn't more of a story about that, dude. They traded for Brandon Cooks and paid him while
Yeah.
Aaron Donald was holding out. They paid Brandon
We
Cooks.
talked about it
And he
repeatedly.
didn't do anything with the team before Aaron Donald. I couldn't believe it, bro.
I think that plays
Maybe this
into
is the
how
year we
much
hear from
leverage we
Tony
have.
Pastors. Yeah?
Oh God.
Yeah?
Pastor Reeves.
I hope we don't.
Ever? Just once?
We
No? Okay.
There's such a good team communicating what's going on with
Let's ask Sean
and-
McVay about it.
Yeah, he'll be
Let's ask Jalen
transparent.
Ramsey about it. Let's see what he thinks.
Yeah, right? Keep pestering Jay. How did that go?
Fantastic
I just-
for me. I was highly entertained.
Yeah.
I just noticed that Pastors didn't. There's no palindrome in Aaron Donald's contract.
They stopped doing that. I
Oh.
think people started making fun of them to the point of like, why are you guys playing? Maybe you shouldn't play games with contracts when this is literally your business. Like, stop making jokes about money.
We were talking about running two tight end sets and what the impact of that is to Cooper Kupp. How our offense looks this year. Honestly, to me, if I'm running that team, is going to steer if I'm paying Cooper Kupp's.
We saw what
18,
happened at the end of
19
last year, right?
Exactly right. Tyler Higbee got all of those looks.
Mhm.
One of those guys is under contract.
hmm
I hate to say that because I like Coop, but
I love him.
You guys really think? I feel like he's too valuable. Not even on the field,
I
obviously
hope
on the
so.
field, but in terms of in the locker room and like in
Right.
the culture of the, you know what I mean? Like the things that you aren't tangible,
Sure,
you can't
sure.
really explain. But I would have to go back now because I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but nothing's coming to mind. When they were playing 12 personnel last year, was Cup playing outside with Woods? He must have been, no?
Some.
Yeah, they're both playing. Yeah, some. Or they would
Look at his
run
numbers.
Gerald out, like you were talking about. They would motion him
And
out.
then he got hurt.
Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember like why Cup became such a non-factor when they started going 12 personnel, because he's good enough to win outside, I think.
Yeah, he is.
His slot, like, he belongs in a slot, and athletically he's limited, so he's not going to go outside on a island and
Take the top off,
rip
right.
guys down the field. But
yeah,
I mean,
did that dip happen after the Cincy game?
I think it was after the Cincy game. Yeah.
Because Cincy game he was on pace to go for 5 hundo. Right. Yeah. And maybe part of that is a byproduct of Brandon not being in there, where you don't have to worry about the lid getting ripped off anymore.
Right.
So now you can bracket the hell out of Cooper if you need to.
Sure.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it, but it just, to me, that's going to be the thing that's interesting. If they are run predominantly 2 tight end sets, that obviously he's great and he changes the game for them, but I don't know if you can justify spending how much money you're going to have to spend to keep him on the roster.
Here's a little story of Cooper Kupp's 2019 season. He had 120, 101, 121, 117, and 220 up to the Cincinnati game. And then he went
week 7 or
zero yards in the Pittsburgh game, 53, 35, 65, 45, 41, 31. He came back at the end of the year and had 7 receptions for 99 yards and a touchdown at the end of the year. The odd thing is, with all those low outputs, he still scored touchdowns. He had a receiving touchdown.
He was in the end zone a lot.
5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right?
He was only
35 yards,
2 wide receivers that had
that many touchdowns. Right? Yeah.
See, but the thing that's interesting though, and this is lucky why I write for PFF, is I have access to these numbers now. The only team that ran 12 personnel at least 50% of the time was the Eagles. And obviously, they did it because they had no choice. They were one injury away from starting one of us 5 at receiver.
Yep.
So I think the next closest was, I want to say it was the Vikings. I might be wrong. And I think it was like 34.5, 35%. So predominantly, like, teams are still running 11 personnel, right?
Yeah.
Like 60 to 70% of the time on average. And so, like, regardless of whether the Rams tried out 12 personnel, and they will, you're still going to get a lot of guys like Cooper Kupp in the slot. And, like, is it worth paying? I don't know. That's a discussion for sure to have, right? If he's only out there 70% of the time or 75% of the time or something. But I feel like Sean McVay wants to go back to what he did in 2018. He's just not capable of it because defenses are not going to allow it, right?
Yeah.
Why would you let him run outside zone? I would line up in a 6-1 defense too all of the time. You know what I mean? So
a lot of it to me gets back to the run efficacy too, because if you're talking about it getting enough, let's just say sheer pass attempts for Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and Van Jefferson and Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett, you're going to have to get first downs. You got to get more out of the running game just to get more chances to spread the ball around in the first place.
And that's one thing that I really understood why they took Van Jefferson, is that he's the best. His best part of his game is working 5 to 10 or 5 to 15 yards, converting first downs. And when the Rams were at their best in 2018 and even 2017, what were they doing?
Canadian internet kicking in.
Yeah, they did. That was
look at that. He's frozen.
Trudeau jumped on the feed.
Sosa
and
looks
shut
so
it down.
scared. Looks like
He just saw into the future. He just saw into week 2, the offensive line.
So who's the most undeserving of a roster spot?
Ooh.
I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are.
Undeserving of a roster spot. That's a good question.
Well, it's hard with some of these offensive linemen guys because you just haven't. I don't want to throw a bunch of cold water on Coleman Shelton because the guy does my taxes. I don't want to offend him, but it's hard. I think. With the guys I'm most familiar with, I would probably say I would look at the I don't think we need that many wide receivers. And so I guess Tristan Jackson maybe, but I know
he's going to be special teams though. He's not even that's one of those things I wish sometimes we would just be more sincere about positions, is not even list him as a wide receiver, right? He's not going to play wide receiver ever.
Athlete.
Yeah. But kind of that same thing is, I know we've only got 3 inside linebackers, but
Troy Reader.
Man, Troy Reader and Kenny Young. Kenny Young didn't play last year, so it's one of those things where it's like we're spending a roster spot. I know you got to have depth, and I know in the case that you want to get some 2 linebacker looks that you got to have bodies. But man, you think of the guys that just barely missed out, and you'd rather have Troy Reader and Kenny Young over those guys? I don't know.
Troy Reader is why I teed that question up, to be honest with you. Like,
yeah. He's an obvious one. Yeah.
I don't think he belongs in the league. There's actually I think it's been well known of my love for Dante Olson because he's a University of Montana alum. But honestly, the reason that he didn't make that roster is they sent a kid from the CFL last year.
Yeah. That
is good, really good. And I think it is such a position that, like, just like running back, where you can find really good players.
Yeah.
That,
Corey Littleton.
That aren't, exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Troy Reader just looks so damn clunky out there. Like, he doesn't do one thing good.
Yeah. And it's weird. It's weird that the only reason that Troy Reader got the time that he did last year was because who got hurt? Bryce Hager, right? Yeah, and Micah. You're right, both of them.
Yeah. I mean, Hager's a free agent, so if they ever get that desperate, I mean, that's an option. But I mean, I didn't even know what the question was, but I hear you guys talking about Troy Reader.
Who was your least deserving of a spot on the 53 man that got one?
Yeah, I don't want to rag on the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish we got to see, so I think we could have more accurate opinions. But
sure,
like a Sloman, I think would be interesting.
Yeah.
Like, because I can only go off what was reported, and what was reported was that he was struggling, right?
Right. And he did.
The Balkan boot was number one, all right?
Balkan boot.
Balkan boot.
the Kosovo kick god.
Yeah, I think this – maybe the age played a factor because my boy's like 29. He's already aging, you know what I mean? But
right.
He played to 43. So.
Yeah. Morton Anderson kicked till he was like 70. You're good.
Yeah.
Legitimate question of guys playing until they're 43. Can Jake McQuaid play until he's 50? Like, I feel I know it's silly. I know it's weird. But there's maybe a chance, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like
how often does he have to get in the open field and make a tackle? Like 3 times a season?
Would that be the scariest thing ever? Is seeing Jake McQuaid have to actually play football once and be like, oh God.
But if there's like a blocked kick, I mean, he would be one of the guys chasing down a defensive tackle.
I think his
McQuaid will be employed as long as
tied to Johnny.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Yeah. As long as Johnny's there, McQuaid is there because you're not going to get rid of his coach,
his guy,
his best friend, and the kicker.
And it's basically like Maverick and Goose. Are they just kind of
right?
Maverick and Goose.
Does that mean? Oh no, is McQuaid gonna die? Oh no.
Hector's like, talk to me, McQuaid. Talk to me, McQuaid.
We were inverted.
Who's McQuaid's? Meg Ryan. Meg Ryan can come in and play McQuaid's.
Take me home.
So much.
Take me to bed or lose me forever.
Oh God, we got into the point of the show. It's Top Gun.
Yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up here, boys. Any final thoughts as we head into Week 1 of Dallas?
Can't wait to see this Memphis-Arkansas State game we're gonna watch together, Robbo.
I'm ready for Bone with Blue Sox to make his debut on Sunday Night Football.
We did it. We didn't talk about uniforms the whole show. Yay.
That's what I'm ready for.
You know what? I want to talk about the first 8 games that we're playing. If I'm just making some guesses of just games that we should win, it looks like the first 3 games I would love for us to win, but we
did it last year.
Yeah, but it's like Dallas, Philadelphia, Buffalo, they're all kind of stacked teams.
Yeah.
We could beat any of them, but I feel like we need to beat the Giants for sure in Week 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We got to beat Washington Week 5. And the Niners going to be challenged. I think we need to beat the Bears, and I think we need to beat the Dolphins. So the first 8, I think for sure we could go 4 wins, and we obviously need to win more than that. But these are some good teams we're playing against. None of them are these sort of pushovers, right? I mean,
we lost to Tampa last year.
I think the Giants and Miami are probably the closest you get to like, hey, what the hell are you doing if you lose that game?
Right. Washington and Chicago aren't far behind though.
Right.
No.
But Chicago has a big defense, but they got like they basically have me at quarterback. So
We get to play. What are the chances we get to see Nick Foles in that game? I know he's got to stay healthy to that point, but that'd be
Week
a
7?
fun little. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's there.
That could be fun. That could be a fun game.
I think the biggest thing
something-
it is on the schedule is they have to win at home.
Which has been an
honestly,
issue.
Totally, but
Yeah.
I really didn't put the dots together here. But if I'm
Mhm.
looking at this, they got to go across the country in week 2 to Philadelphia.
Yep.
They got to go cross country week 3 to Buffalo. They got to go back cross country in week 5 against Washington. They got to go back cross country in week 8 against the Dolphins, and then again in week 10 against the Bucs. Like, for as much as we talked about not traveling last year, we have the complete
We're moving
opposite
a lot.
this year.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
cow!
At least we're not going to
I am-
London.
Yeah.
I'm 0-5 at the Coliseum since the return, so I am not.
Yeah, you don't get to go no
I've,
more.
I've just skipped out.
He doesn't have to go to the Coliseum anymore. It's a new stadium. The curse is
We
dead.
got SoFi.
I'm on a
But
heater.
I
You
think,
got to come with me next.
Something we did around draft time that was kind of fun was we kind of did like an online, like a little YouTube live thing. I think I'm going to try to get some of those going post game this year.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a half-hour quick hit, let's get some first thoughts. People want to talk about it, whatever. So on our YouTube station, that's on our channel on YouTube. I think that's something I'd like to do. I used to do Facebook Lives. I think we'll do that.
What do the kids say?
Like,
What do they say on YouTube? Like and subscribe or something like
Like and
that? I
subscribe.
gotta ask my daughter. That's how sad this is getting.
TikTok. We need who's handling TikTok?
Turn
Like
on
and
the little
subscribe
bell.
below.
Joey?
Turn on the little bell
Joey, is Augie
notification
available
so
to handle our
when we
TikTok,
upload.
Joey?
He's kids YouTube.
God, we're old.
He watches Minecraft videos on kids YouTube, so he's not there yet.
We launched our site yesterday, Beyond the Horns. Check us out. We got the pods. We've got all our social stuff. So we'll be here. We got the YouTube stuff kicking up. As I said, we'll be doing. I want to start doing those live, reaction after the hopefully a number of wins this year. But thanks for joining us.